From there onwards, we are taking it forward to the section of ionization enthalpies. Now again, ionization enthalpy is a very important property of d block elements because it basically connects and makes you understand the chemical properties that we are going to understand in detail in this particular chapter. So let's understand the ionization energies. But before going there, a quick small recap of what ionization energy is. Ionization energy or ionization enthalpy, as we would like to call it, is the amount of energy required to remove one electron from the outermost orbit of a particular element. So for example, let's say we have scandium, the most simplest of the transition element. We know that the atomic number of this particular element is 21, right? And the electronic configuration of the outermost orbit is 4s2 3d1, right? Before this there is argon, the electronic configuration of argon, which is 1s2 2s2 2p6 3s2 3p6, that is the electronic configuration of argon, right? And after that there is 4s2, the 4s orbital has 2 electrons. The first electron, when it is filled, it's the potassium element that we get. The second electron, when we fill, we get the calcium element. And after that we go into the 3d orbital, which has 5 suborbitals as we know it, and when the first electron is filled, it becomes the scandium element. So this is how the scandium element, the electronic configuration of it looks like. Now when we say ionization energy, it's about what amount of energy is required to remove the one electron, the outermost electron from this atom, right? So when it comes to energies, this electron, the 4s orbital, is the most outermost orbital for the scandium element, and this, either of these electrons are going to get eliminated, are going to get pulled out from the attraction hold of the scandium nucleus, right? So the amount of energy required to remove this electron is called the ionization energy, or as we have written, the first ionization energy. The first ionization energy is the amount of energy required to remove the first electron, and the second ionization energy is the amount of energy required to remove the second electron, right? And depending on these, all the chemical reactions are going to get built up naturally. As you can understand, as we remove electrons, these metals are going to go in their oxidation states, like +1, +2 and so on. That is what the characteristics of metals are, and once they go there, they start forming compounds with anions, because these then go into the form of cations. Now let's study in terms of numbers, in terms of variation, how exactly these changes happen. As you can see, we have a list in front of us. As Salman sir must have definitely clearly gave you a note of remembering these elements in case you are not very used to remembering these elements: scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc. As he must have already told you a small trick formula to remember this: science teacher, very cruel man, felt cold in the night to have a cup of zinc. That is what the trick is to remember this. Now coming to the numbers, now coming to the first ionization potential or first ionization energy, enthalpy, however you want to call it. These are the numbers, and all these numbers are in kilojoules per mole, right? So to remove one electron, right, from each of the atom in 1 mole of atoms of scandium element, 631 kilojoules of energy is required, right? You can understand that analysis. 1 mole of an atom contains 6.023 into 10 raised to 23 scandium atoms. 1 mole of scandium atoms involves the Avogadro number of atoms. That means it has to remove that many electrons from each and every atom, right? So to remove those many number of electrons, 6.023 into 10 raised to 23 electrons, 631 kilojoules of energy is required. That makes sense, right? Now, what more important we got to focus is the variation. Now, this is something that we must have obviously previously discussed in the S block and P block ionization energy variations, that as you go across a period, this is one period, right? In this particular period, when you go across from left to right, right, for you this is the left, this is the right, when you go from left to right, you will notice that the ionization energies increase. Now, why does that happen? That happens because as you go from left to right, the number of electrons increase in the outermost shell, the number of electrons increase, right? As you can see, the scandium has only one electron over here, right? Although it has two electrons here, but it has only one electron here. When it becomes atomic number 22, which is scandium, and then we have titanium, we have one more electron here. Vanadium has one more electron here. Then there is chromium with an exception. Then there is manganese, then iron, cobalt, nickel. The second round of electrons get filled. What I am trying to say here is, as you go from left to right, the number of electrons in the outermost shell is 4s2 first, but the 3D influence is also there. So as the number of electrons increase, the interelectronic repulsion increases, right? So an interelectronic repulsion increases, but what is more important is the total number of electrons, and naturally hence the total number of protons in the nucleus also increases. So just to take an example, let's say this is the scandium nucleus, right? Then it has many orbits, and finally it has the orbit where there is the electron which is going to get eliminated. Now, as you go from left to right, the number of protons here also increase, right? I'm just giving you a rough schematic, not with proper numbers, but the number of protons increases, the number of electrons also increase. But let's say this is the electron which is going to get eliminated, now has more attraction from the nucleus, because the number of protons have increased. So if the number of protons have increased, the attraction increases, and since the attraction increases, it is difficult to remove this electron, relatively more difficult to remove that electron, right? And hence, as we go from left to right, it is more and more difficult to remove that electron, and hence more energy is required to remove that electron, and that is why you can see an increasing variation. Although, let me tell you right now that this variation is very much clear in the earlier block elements that you must have learned. Basically, when you go to the second period and predominantly the third period, when I say the second period, it starts from your lithium atom, then beryllium, boron, carbon, and so on till fluorine, and then the third period it starts with sodium and goes on till chlorine. In these two periods, you must have predominantly noticed that the increase in ionization potential is very high, but here the increasing ionization potential is not very high, it's not very steep, there is very little change here, rather there is a small decrease here, a slight increase, then there is a good enough increase, and this variation keeps on going up and down. Now, why does this thing particularly happen here? This happens here because while you are removing electron, after the electron is removed, the outermost electron is removed, there is a reorganization of energies, right? Why does that happen? Let's take this example. Now, this is the scandium atom that we were talking about. When the outermost electron is removed, it becomes Sc+, right? One electron is removed, and then the electronic configuration of the scandium ion, rather the scandium cation in this case, looks something like this. One of the electrons from here is removed, so only one is left here, and this one is originally there as it is. So after you reach this stage, there is a reorganization of energies of sorts, and that is why this reorganization is quite variable as you go forward, and that is the reason you don't see a stark change in the ionization potential. Although you will still notice that there is an increase, but not a very heavy increase per se. That is why you can see these numbers, but there are a few exceptions which we have to notice here. Why does that thing happen? And those things are particularly for chromium and particularly for copper, right? These we will discuss, for that matter even these numbers are particularly of high importance and will help you for solving MCQs as well. Let us discuss chromium and copper first, right? Chromium, which has the atomic number of 24, has the electronic configuration, ideally should have an electronic configuration of 4s2 3d4, but it does not have that. It has the electronic configuration of 4s1 3d5. The reason behind it has been already discussed with you. The reason behind that is chromium would not mind extra stability, and this has been previously discussed in the case of magnesium as well. If you remember, magnesium has a full filled 3s orbital, and that is why it has higher stability, and that is the reason why it is very difficult to remove an electron from the magnesium atom. A similar case is in phosphorus. If you notice, phosphorus has this electronic configuration where the 3p orbital is half filled, as in each of the individual suborbital of phosphorus, this is the 3p orbital of phosphorus, has one electron each. So this is half filled phosphorus 3p orbital, which is extra stable, and hence it is very difficult to remove an electron from here as well. When I say very difficult, it means the amount of energy required to remove this electron is higher. So on similar lines, that is what happens here when I consider chromium. Ideally it should have 2 electrons here and 1, 2, 3, 4 here, but then chromium, think of chromium atom as a human being, right? Human beings are greedy, so why not? Even atoms are greedy, right? It would want more stability. When I talk about greed, I don't talk about money. When I talk about greed here, I'm talking about peace and stability, right? Every atom needs that. Every atom wants to relax. This is in a way a kind of an explanation that I'm trying to give you, that why does chromium, why does an atom does that, right? Why does not it go with the standard flow, but it wants something unusual? So in place of having 4s2, what it does that is the extra electron here, right? Ideally it is 4s2 3d4, but this extra electron reorganizes itself and goes here. Why? Because when it goes here, it gains that half filled stability of the 3d orbital, which is of very high importance. Why? Because the 3d orbital has 5 suborbitals, so it has a very high weightage. Now if this has a half filled 3d orbital, it gains immense stability, and that is what exactly chromium has. Now when we have this organization, when we have this particular electronic configuration, removing the first electron is relatively very easy, right? So when I remove this electron, it's very easy, as we saw in this case as well, and that is why this number is not very surprising. It's 653. It goes along the trend, nothing of high importance. But the important thing comes in the second ionization energy, the delta HIE2 that we are talking about. This is the energy, amount of energy required to remove the second electron of the outermost orbit. Now once this is gone, the second electron naturally has to come out of this orbital, right? Now to do that, we have to break the stability that has been gained by chromium, and that is why, my dear friends, to remove either of these electrons, it requires a relatively high second ionization energy. As you can see, this list 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 3, 0, 9, 1, 4, 1, 4, there is an increase which we have already discussed. This increase is due to the increase in the number of protons in the nucleus, and hence the increase in the number of electrons, which leads to the increase in attraction, and hence more amount of energy is required to remove the electron. So this increase is quite natural. But after this, there is a very high increase and then a decrease. This very high increase is due to the reason that the half filled 3d orbital is disturbed. So basically, if I want to remove the second electron, I have to disturb the piece of the half filled ultra stable 3d orbital of Mr. Chromium, and that is why this energy is high. Now following this logic, can we talk about copper, right? As you must have already noticed, we have a dip down here, then there is an increase, then there is an increase, then there is an increase, but after this there is a sudden huge increase of 200 kilojoules per mole, right? And then there is a dip again. Now this again happens due to the same reason. Following the logic for chromium, let's discuss for copper. Copper, which is cuprum and has the atomic number of 29. Ideally it was supposed to have the electronic configuration of 4s2 3d9, but it does not. On the other hand, it has the electronic configuration of 4s1 3d10, and the reason behind that again is the same greed for stability and peace, right? Ideally it was supposed to have 2 electrons here, right? And then, right, it was supposed to have this 4s2 3d9, but the problem is copper sees the scope of obtaining a full filled d orbital. So why not? It pounces upon that opportunity. This electron here reorganizes itself and goes here. And now what does copper have? Copper has a lone electron in the 4s orbital and a full filled d orbital, right? So fully filled, stable 3d orbital, right? So this is wonderful. This is what exactly copper wants to achieve stability. Now here, to remove this electron is not big a problem, as this number very easily reflects on 745, 736 से 745 जा रहा है, बहुत छोटा सा increase है, right? So this is quite natural. So this electron going away is fine, and that is what exactly had happened in copper, chromium as well. So the same thing has happened in copper as well. But now the dynamic changes when we talk about the second delta H, IE2, which is the amount of energy required to remove the second electron in the outermost orbit, which the trend of which we have seen, and there is a change over here. Now it has to eliminate either of these electrons. So let's say we remove this electron, but to remove any of these electrons from any of the suborbitals, we need to destroy or affect the stability that copper has obtained, and hence this high amount of energy, right? So applying the logic that we have applied till now, we can understand these numbers, that why these trends, why these changes are happening, and after removal of every electron, the cation that is obtained, the position that the atom or the element goes into also undergoes a reorganization of energies of the 4s and the 3d orbitals, and which gives you these particular numbers, right? So this defines the trend of ionization enthalpies, my friends. And after that, one more small very important thing rather that you will notice, that in each and every of these elements, ideally removing 2 electrons is the most likely option. So the most visible oxidation state, the most predominant oxidation state, so to say, which gets involved into chemical reaction is +2, right? Now why is that the case? That is the reason. The reason behind that is each and every of these elements have 2 electrons, ideally, apart from the exception of chromium and copper, have 2 electrons in the 4s orbital. So whenever a chemical reaction happens, ideally 2 electrons are eliminated, right? As we saw here, this is scandium +1, but then there is a 1 electron in 4s orbital as well. If we remove that electron, then the entire 4th orbit is eliminated and scandium +2 is obtained, which has 3d as the last orbital with only one single electron, and hence this very readily gets involved into chemical reaction. So the most likely visible predominant oxidation state for this particular 3D group is nothing but +2. Now one more very important thing which I want to discuss, although not directly related to the ionization energies, but something which has been particularly asked. The thing is the heat of atomization, right? The heat of atomization is quite high for transition elements. Now why is that the case? Why is the heat of transition more for now this is a separate thing that we are trying to discuss here. Heat of atomization is very high for transition elements. The logic behind that is again coming from the basics, if you think. Now these transition elements, as you have seen their structure, their electronic configuration, have more and more single electrons. When I mean single electrons, I mean unpaired electrons, right? To take an example, let us take the example of chromium, so to say. As you can see, this is the electronic configuration of chromium, right? And you can see 6 unpaired electrons in the chromium electronic configuration. Now if you have more unpaired electrons, the transition elements, this particular block here has large number of unpaired electrons, right? As you can see the example of chromium here, it has 6 unpaired electrons in its most normal atomic state, which is this. As you can see, we already learned the reason why this one electron here jumps here to make the half filled 3D orbital so that it can become more stable. But the reason behind high heat of atomization is that these unpaired electrons have very strong interatomic attractions, right? Let's first understand what heat of atomization is. Naturally, when you consider metals, these metals are not isolated as a single atom. These are present in bulk. These are present in different kinds of structures. Like you have learnt in the solid state chapter that there is hexagonal close packed, there is cubic close packed, right? There is body centered cube, different kinds of structures. So naturally these atoms are connected to each other in one form or the another, right? Now that clearly indicates that it's a bulk of atoms together making a particular structure. There's not one single isolated atom that you can find. So for a chemical reaction to happen, these atoms need to be broken. So it is basically the amount of heat that you give to a structure to isolate an atom. That is what heat of atomization is all about. Now when you have this group of atoms, the heat of atomization increases if you have high interatomic attraction. Interatomic attraction is एक एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं. मान लीजिए आपके पास एक क्रोमियम एटम है और एक दूसरा क्रोमियम एटम है. नेचुरली सिर्फ ये दो एटम्स नहीं होंगे, इसके आसपास और बहुत सारे एटम्स होंगे क्रोमियम के ही. बट एक क्रोमियम एटम का अगर आपको रिएक्शन करना है, देन यू हैव टू ब्रेक आइसोलेट दिस क्रोमियम एटम फ्रॉम द अदर क्रोमियम एटम्स अराउंड इट. सो द अमाउंट ऑफ एनर्जी रिक्वायर्ड टू ब्रेक ऑल दीज bonds which are not covalent or ionic bonds but are metallic bonds, and to bring this chromium atom separately so that it can take part in the chemical reaction, that energy is called the heat of atomization. Now if this heat required is more, heat of atomization is more, and why is this energy stronger? That is due to the more amount of unpaired electrons, which is, this is the most ideal example. The chromium is the most ideal example because it has 6 in them. So more number of unpaired electrons, stronger interatomic attractions, more heat of atomization, and this is very predominantly observed in the 3D shell, and that is why we see that heat of atomization is very high in the transition elements. So friends, let's move on further which is basically the intersection of the physical and chemical properties, as we even discussed in the previous section. This section is going to focus on the different variable oxidation states for which the transition elements are known for, and secondly we are also going to discuss about the electrode potentials. So friends, let's start with the oxidation states. As you can see on this side, all the elements of the 3D block have been written here, and the variable different oxidation states that each and every element take when they react chemically and form compounds have been laid down. Now naturally all of these oxidation states occur, but not are the dominant ones. Each and every element will have 1, 2 or 3 predominantly important oxidation states, right? So let's try and analyze each and every one of them, and also let's try and analyze why is there an ambiguity. Right? Why is there an ambiguity in basically what I mean to say is, why does scandium have only one oxidation state, or why does titanium have only 3? Similarly, why does copper and zinc have 2 and 1 respectively, but on the other side manganese has a whole of 6 different oxidation states? So let's try and understand, but first let's browse through this section and understand which are the most dominant oxidation states. That means which are those oxidation states that that occur frequently, more often than not, as compared to the others. So scandium, as you can see, it has only one oxidation state +3, and that is how we see it more often. We also saw the electronic configuration of scandium, if you remember. So this is how scandium looks like in its natural ground state. Now when scandium +3 is formed, it basically has nothing over here and nothing over here as well, right? So जब स्कैंडियम के 3 आउटरमोस्ट इलेक्ट्रॉन्स निकल जाते हैं तो स्कैंडियम के पास ना ही 3d ऑर्बिटल का कोई इलेक्ट्रॉन बचता है और ना ही 4s ऑर्बिटल का कोई इलेक्ट्रॉन बचता है. सो स्कैंडियम +3 इज बेसिकली हैविंग द इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कॉन्फ़िगरेशन ऑफ आर्गन, right? So now it has reached a stability state with the +3 cationic charge, and hence can form compounds like SCCl3. Scandium chloride is one common compound where scandium has a +3 charge, and chlorine, each chlorine anion has a -1 charge. So 3 chlorine anions have -3 and scandium has the +3 charge. So this is how it sorts itself out. Now let's go to titanium. Now as you can see, titanium has 3 different oxidation states, +2, +3 and +4. So